Okay, friends, Samantha Lee Wright is here with me today. I'm so excited. We are talking about ditching and switching, getting rid of chemicals, and I'm so excited to have you. Welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm super excited to be here.
Yes, of course. So, as I say, like ditching and switching, I feel like it's kind of this is how I was. So when people would say ditching and switching and getting rid of chemicals, before I had been introduced to this world, I was like, well, I don't have chemicals in my house. Like that's crazy. There's nothing for me to ditch and switch. But I think people don't like, obviously, we don't knowingly walk around having toxic things in our house most of the time. Like, we're not just like, oh, great, this cleaner is horrible for us. I purposely use that. And so, like, I
Right.
love that quote of like, you don't know until you know. As simple as that is, you don't know until you know. So I just kind of wanted to have a preface of that because I think at least I was a little bit defensive when I first started hearing about ditching chemicals and stuff. But to start us off, do you want to just kind of tell us a little bit about yourself and how you like stumbled upon the information that common household cleaners and personal care products and stuff like that are harsh and dangerous?
Yeah. I mean, I think I'm kind of similar to you. I've for a long time been very kind of aware of chemicals and leaned a little more towards you could say the granola side of things a bit. So for me, I always approached this topic and any other sort of health and wellness topic as well as not so much an educational issue, which it is that, but it's an empowerment issue for me. From an early age, I realized that my health was my responsibility, and I couldn't just hand that over to a doctor who I just met
Mm-hmm.
or someone telling me, oh yeah, you got to go, do this or that. And yeah, it's kind of funny. I say my journey started with birth control because to me that was the first big medical decision I really ever needed to make for myself. And I did see it as a decision that I needed to make for myself. I didn't want to make
Mm-hmm.
this decision based on just what my mom said or what my sisters did or what my friends did or what my doctor said. I wanted to know my options. And I had this really inherent curiosity about, well, what are my options here? And when I was presented with the traditional options for birth control, I was just like, this is it. This is all you have for me. This is really all my options. These all
Yeah.
suck. Like
Yeah.
I don't like any of these options. And I had had sisters that dealt with endometriosis and, terrible side effects as well from hormonal birth control. So anyway, it kind of put me down this huge rabbit hole of just discovering more about my body. And I realized just how ignorant I was about my body and how it worked. And I became very empowered to learn that information and learn that kind of knowledge. And that carried over into when I had babies and what my choices and my options were there. And I think there's just a natural spillover that happens when you do step into that role of taking charge of your health and not handing that over, having that responsibility be on you to find that information, find that education. There's a spillover then into the products that you're using and what you're buying and what you're bringing into your home as well. And so I consider myself an empowered patient, and I also consider myself an empowered consumer. When I go to the grocery store, I have power to choose what I'm going to spend my money on, what kind of company and am I going to support, and tell them with my dollars, yeah, keep it up, keep making that with those products. And that's a powerful thing when you put yourself in those shoes to
Yeah.
realize, oh wow, I do have power and I have choices and I have options. So
Yeah.
yeah.
That is so, I agree. It's like, I remember the moment where I realized that I was allowed to disagree with a doctor or like not even disagree, but like not do what they were asking or telling. It is so empowering to be like, oh, wait, like the doctors or even like cleaning companies, like they are working for us. And so if something doesn't align with us or feel right, like we can say, I'm going to look elsewhere. And that's just like
Yeah.
this aha moment when that happens, isn't it? Just like, wait, I can do
It's an
that.
exciting moment. It's really empowering, but it can also be really scary,
Yes.
especially for the first time or even not. I mean, I've kind of lived my life with this philosophy for a very long time, and I've hardly ever had issue telling a doctor or a midwife or whoever, like, no, not going to do that. I'd rather do this. And I'm nice about it. I'm not like, I'm not one of those patients that they're like, oh God, here comes
Yeah.
Samantha Lee Wright. Like, get her out of my chair. I'm not like that at all, but I know how to speak up for myself. I know how to have my options. But then in 2019, my daughter, she was 3 years old at the time, 4 years old at the time, she was diagnosed with juvenile idiopathic arthritis, JIA.
Wow.
And it was this, just big thing that just came out of nowhere. It hit me like a bus. I mean, she, all of a sudden one day her knees were just swelling up to the size of like grapefruit. So she couldn't even walk. She was limping
Wow.
around. She was in so much pain. And, to see my baby girl like that it just turned me into a puddle, and
Yeah.
I just couldn't really deal with it. And so I just turned into sheep mode. I just tell me what to do. Just
Mm-hmm.
someone tell me what to do. And I just wanted to go to a doctor, listen to their advice and just do what they said. And it took about 8 months of me needing that emotionally and needing to just like turn that other side of my brain off for me to just get through those emotions. But then once I woke up, and here's the importance of waking up, I started researching more. I started learning more. I started exploring my options and realized, you know what? Something about this does not feel right to me. The whole definition of juvenile idiopathic arthritis, that word idiopathic means we don't know what's causing this. There's no reason for this to happen. And for me, that's just not a good enough answer. I want to know, why is this happening to her?
Yeah.
And they couldn't give me an answer. And the only options they were giving me were immunosuppressants and steroids and all these things that were just, I could tell were not going to serve her body. In my mind, I'm thinking, well, what's wrong with her is not a lack of immunosuppressants in her system. There's something else happening. And so, long story short, during doing more research, I finally pushed to have her tested for Lyme disease, pushed very hard. They were super resistant to doing that. She got her first test results came back negative. I kept researching. I learned that the false negative results for a Lyme test is up to 50% or more.
Wow.
So I said, test her again. Test her again, because this is the only thing that I'm seeing that could make any sense, and got that second test result back as a positive. And that, completely changed her whole journey of how we approach this thing. She's no longer just having arthritis for no dang reason.
Yeah.
She's having it because she has a bacteria in her body that was given to her by a tick that is wreaking havoc on her system. Now we can build an actual plan here that is going to work with her and build her body and make it stronger, instead of just accepting like, well, we don't know why this is happening, so let's just suppress it with some steroids,
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess I just say all that to say it can be overwhelming and it can be kind of scary to like step into that empowerment role, but it's also necessary.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I could not agree with that more. And I think it is very common for sometimes, especially when there's a big diagnosis or maybe some other like very stressful, like maybe you just had a baby, or just like sometimes we are in a place where it's just too much to look at and you have to like put the blinders on. And so like there's definitely no judgment with that. I have a very similar story like with being diagnosed with lupus, and same thing. They tell you, oh, lupus is your body attacking itself. And I'm just like, why is my body attacking itself? I could not accept that. At first, I got really depressed and just like frustrated and like, why would my body do that to me? I'm like 18 at the time. But then, I went through that period, just like you said with your daughter, of like doing the steroids. And then I just kind of like realized like, wait, maybe there's something else. And so I think that's so interesting that our stories like overlap like that. But I think it's very common for people to kind of have like a window of head down, and then we're like woken up, and it's really, really exciting. So let's dive into like,
Yeah. And it's interesting how we're talking about kind of these serious medical things, but it can easily cross over to like dumb things like shampoo and makeup and stuff, because it's kind of the same thing. Like, sometimes you do just have to put your head down and be like, I don't care. Just like, get me the shampoo from the dollar store. Like, I ain't got time to care about this right now.
Yeah.
I don't have money to care about this right now. And that's totally legit.
Yes.
No shame, no guilt. You got to do what works for you.
Yes.
But then you might come to that time or that awakening where you're like, you know what? I don't like the fact that this is bad for the environment, or I don't like the fact that this is like entering toxins into my bloodstream. Maybe this is related to the fact that I'm kind of getting depressed all the time, or I feel lethargic. Maybe there's some connections here. What am I going to do about it? Right.
Yes.
And
yes.
you can make those choices.
Yes. Love that. And it's everyone's like, they all have a time. That's why, like, when I was super head down with my essential oil business, sometimes if they were like, it's not the right time to buy. And they'd say like, I'm so sorry, maybe next month. I'm like, don't be sorry. Like, everyone has their own like journey and story. And it took me, I've shared this on the show before, but it took me years. Like, I was chronically ill and someone had asked my mom if I had tried essential oils. And I was like deeply offended. Like, you think plants could heal me? Like, that is so rude. So it's just like everyone's journey, but the timing is just in each individual person for sure. So
Absolutely.
For people who are like kind of hearing the topic of our conversation today and thinking like, how can this be true? How can there be harsh, damaging chemicals and ingredients in our personal care products and our cleaners? Like, I just don't believe it, because we are in, the United States. Aren't there laws or regulations in place to protect us from this kind of thing? What's your response to that?
Yeah, there's like this inherent trust that a lot of us are born with maybe our government or the regulatory agencies or whatnot that's there. And we think, oh yeah, these people, they got my back. They're not going to let this stuff in the stores that are going to kill me or whatnot. And then when that kind of illusion is broken a little bit, it can be hard. It can be really, really hard. But when you look at the facts and you look at the fact that especially with the personal and cosmetic care industry, which covers cleaning supplies. So not just lipstick, shampoo, conditioner, soap, but also Windex, floor cleaner, whatnot. That all is underneath the arc of cosmetics, basically, and personal care. There has not been a regulatory change in that industry as far as what can and can't be used in products in the United States since the 1920s.
Wow.
There has not been a bill that has gotten to the Senate that says, hey, let's look a little closer at these chemicals that are being used in products, and maybe let's just take some of these off the list that are not allowed to be used. It's not going to happen, because of the way politics works, essentially. We're not going to get to that discussion, but that's just the facts that there has not been those kind of changes happen in, almost 100 years. Yeah. Think about all of the advances that we've had in science, technology, how many new chemicals have come onto the market. And there's no agency that says, nope, you can't use that to sell to human beings. But the list of no ingredients, as I like to call them, that aren't allowed to be used in the United States is about 13 chemicals long. There's only about 13 chemicals on that list that companies are not allowed to use as ingredients. Compare that to somewhere in the European Union. They have a list that's 1,300 long of chemicals and products that are just not allowed to be used in consumer goods. And so you're thinking, as an American, at least, well, dang, how many of those ingredients that are not allowed to be used in other countries are being used on me? And the truth is, probably most of them, because they're cheap, they're easy, they smell good, they're whatever, they make things foamy, and no one is there saying, nope, you can't use that. And so you have to be aware of that, and you have to go in and tell yourself, you know what, I'm worth a little bit more than the lowest of these ingredients that are known to be toxic just the word fragrance as an example. And that's a place that I encourage people to start. Don't overwhelm yourself and be like, oh, I got to find that whole list of 1,300 ingredients and learn every single one and avoid every single one. Like that can be a little overwhelming. But if you at least start with just the word fragrance, I find that doing that automatically kind of knocks out a lot of the other, what I call kind of bad guys in the industry, because fragrance, it is a term that is used in personal and cosmetic care industries that allows a company to hide whatever ingredients they want to within that term and hide it under a trade secret law. So trade secret laws protect a company from having to disclose every single ingredient that's in their product because they don't want some other company to steal that secret recipe or whatnot. But that is used as a loophole for these companies that are waking up to the realization that, oh yeah, people are kind of waking up to the fact that, parabens aren't that good for us, or that, what's the word I'm blanking on? SLS is like something people are avoiding. So, well, why don't we just put that in our product, but pretend that that's what makes up its fragrance? And so we don't actually have to put that word on the bottle. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that is so true. And I heard someone say that like the word fragrance, it's like this just catch-all term, and you can just, it's like oftentimes like thousands, right, of ingredients, but just like all they have to do is slap fragrance. And so it looks like one ingredient. It looks like, oh, it's just a scent, but it's actually like usually hundreds or even thousands of ingredients, which just have been proven again and again that they aren't good for us.
Yeah. Actually, the American Academy of Dermatology has said that that ingredient fragrance causes more dermatological reactions than poison ivy does.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, that is really, really frustrating. And this whole discovery of information can be like really, really frustrating. And I think sometimes, just like I said in the beginning, it's almost like a gut reaction to either get really mad and like want to throw everything in your house away, or get like kind of defensive and be like, this isn't true, and like,
right. Or it can't be that bad.
Yeah. And like, we totally hold space for all of those feelings because like, it's so valid. It shouldn't be allowed. We agree with that. And like the fact that you said that like nothing's been changed since the 1920s. If we think about like our grandparents or just, people in that generation, like some stories they've shared. I remember like some older ladies came by the house that I grew up in, and they grew up in my house, and they were like 90, and they were telling stories and said like, oh yeah, we got head lice and my mother washed our hair with kerosene and gasoline in the bathroom in here. And I was just like, what? But there's things that we did back then that now we know aren't safe, which they just, we know better and we do better. But like the fact that the ingredient list hasn't changed, we know information that we couldn't have known back then. And so it's just like, that has to be so telling. Like, okay, there are for sure things that are allowed in products that are not safe. So besides fragrance, like what are a few like red flag words? Like if you could give 3 that people like can go to Target or wherever they shop and look for like 3 words to avoid ingredients, what would it be?
So I actually have a list of, I call them the nasty 15 lists. And it's like a quick printout that you can get on a free guide that I have. And I can give you guys the link to that if you want to.
Yeah, definitely.
Or something, but I'll share just 3 out of that I think are really helpful to know about. Are anything that has the term butyl in it, or sometimes it's shortened as BHA. Or it could start out as like BUTYL, butyl. It's sort of, all those are short for butylated hydroxylinosol, some long word like that. And it's really common in like makeup, cosmetics, creams, those kind of things. And it's just a known hormone disruptor, a known carcinogenic. It's just not something that you want on your skin or in your body. And then another one besides fragrance, I'd say is DBP, which is short for debutyl phthalate, which is commonly in things like nail polish, cosmetics, but they aren't legally required to list it, which can be tricky. So I have this cheat sheet, which is really good to have, but I've sort of lately kind of shifted my advice to people as opposed to, learning all these chemicals and reading the back, which, you never know if it's going to say it there anyway, because it could be hiding, under the word fragrance, or some law doesn't make them disclose it. I've sort of changed my outlook to be like, it's all so much easier if you do brand shopping instead. Learning good brands versus bad ingredients. I prefer to focus on the positive anyway. It can be exhausting to go through life and being like, all right, I'm not allowed to use aluminum. I'm not allowed to use fragrance. I'm not allowed to use this and that. And sometimes just finding a way to be like, you know what, instead of worrying about all the things I shouldn't be using, let me just focus on what brands can I start to learn? What brands can I learn to trust that I know are just have this as part of their moral compass anyway, that I know are not going to be putting this crap into their ingredients because they care about the same things that I care about. That's not always easy to do because of greenwashing and marketing and everyone wanting your money and trying to pretend that, oh yeah, we're green over here. Look at us. But I find it a little less exhausting than kind of the other approach.
Yeah, that's such a good piece of advice. I really like that, especially because I agree that it's so exhausting and really frustrating. And instead to just flip it. And then you're kind of like, I know I get like, I'm such a team player in everything that I do that I'm like proud of my companies that I choose, that I'm like, oh, I'm so proud of them for, refusing to use fragrance or so it does definitely keep you in like an optimistic mindset. So what are some companies that you trust for, yourself and your kiddos, your family?
Yeah. So you and I both are huge Young Living girls. We love our Young Living products. And a lot of people don't know that Young Living offers so much more besides just essential oils, right? I love their household cleaner and I've been using their face care products lately a lot, and I'm loving that. They do have makeup, but I will be totally honest, I don't really like the makeup that much. Like I just can't get the foundation working for me. So I really like Beauty Counter or Arbonne for that kind of stuff. I'll tell you, my favorite laundry products lately has been this company called My Green Fills. And they have laundry detergent, softener, dryer, angels, they call them, are these like sacks of these really nice smelling herbs, which are really nice to use. And they send you refills in these just small packets that you mix with water in your same jug. So you don't have to throw away your laundry jug every time either. So I really like them. My Green Fills. And then what other brands do I feel like between those, like Young Living, My Green Fills, and then the occasional like Beauty Counter or Arbonne kind of thing, there's like not much else I need because it's all covered. It's all covered there basically.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I am the same. I also use Beauty Counter, so that is so funny. I have been really liking Thrive Market's products. It's still like, because they carry all different brands, but I do think I have been liking some of their stuff as well. But it's nice to know, just like once you find a brand, like the initial upfront research, like, okay, is this company greenwashing? I almost said brainwashing. Is this company greenwashing, or, can I really trust them? Once you can like figure that out, you no longer have to, once you can fully trust them, you no longer like before, if Young Living comes out with a new product, I'm not like, okay, I have to read the ingredients. Like I'm just at a point where I trust them. And so I can just order it and it's stress-free, that kind of thing.
It does lower a lot of your stress. It can be stressful going in the grocery store and being like, oh my God, can I trust this? Can I trust that? These ingredients, it's exhausting. So I hardly buy anything from the grocery store now, except for produce and food and stuff, but I tend to buy all the other stuff online. And we're in that age now where online buying is just so easy. And I think that it's interesting. People look at that as maybe a negative and they're like, oh, I don't want to buy everything online, or, oh my gosh, that stuff is so much more expensive. And I like to educate people that there's a very good reason for that. There's a reason that these products and these companies are not in stores. And that is because they're not cutting corners. They're not using these really cheap ingredients that are really harsh and really bad for your body. They're not using those cheap ingredients. So of course their products are going to be more expensive. And if you have a product that's more expensive, then even if it's only by, 50 cents, and you try to put that in a grocery store next to another product that is using greenwashing tactics and it looks like it's good and green, it's got the word natural on it, but their product is, a dollar or two less, and no one's going to buy the more expensive product from the shelf when those things are right next to each other. It's just not how humans operate.
Yeah.
And so that is one of the reasons that you don't have these more reputable, more, I guess you could say, natural brands easily accessible in the stores. And you kind of have to get comfortable with searching them out and buying them online. Is they just can't compete with the people who are cutting those corners.
Yeah, that is so true. I never thought about that. And you do, like, just like with any habit, you get used to ordering it online. Like I was very much kind of hesitant about that too. And you just kind of like get used to it. And now it's like, oh my gosh, I can't imagine doing that. Also, I will say with the price difference, I've noticed time and time and time again that, the more pricier product that is more natural, they also last way longer because those companies aren't watering them down or putting a ton of stuff in it just to sud.
Totally.
So like I've found that, sometimes people will comment like the bottle's smaller and it's more expensive, but it also lasts triple the time.
Yeah. And it's usually more effective too. It's like, I kind of compare it to, okay, you could buy a carton of eggs for $1.50 or for $6. What's the nutritional value of one of those eggs versus the more expensive one? It's probably 10 times more.
Yes.
So even though you're paying 6 times the price, you're getting 10 times the nutrition. So really, which one is more expensive if you look at it that way?
Yeah, so true. I always think of like chicken nuggets, those commercials that are like, you can get 10 chicken nuggets for $1. And I'm always just thinking like, what is in them because there has to be a profit margin, right? So like, instead of being like, oh my gosh, yay, chicken nuggets for $1, it should be like, ew, like they're somehow making money still and giving us 10 chicken nuggets, which means there's probably like no chicken in this. And it's the same with soap and all of that stuff. It's just, so what was the first product that you ditched and switched? And also, can you explain what is ditching and switching for people that are like, what is that phrase?
Yeah. Ditching and switching is simply where you look at a product that you have or that you usually buy. Like maybe you go to the grocery store and you usually buy this one brand of laundry detergent. And then you decide, you know what, instead of buying this same brand again, let me switch. Let me switch to something that I know doesn't have these harsh chemicals in it, or that is actually benefiting my health in a better way. And you can do this for food too. Maybe you decide, all right, I don't have the budget to ditch all of my non-organic produce, but let me just at least switch my apples. Let me start buying just organic apples instead of conventional apples. Gosh, the first product I ever ditched and switched. That's such a good question. I think it was my toothpaste.
Ooh.
Yeah, it was my toothpaste. And I actually started making my own toothpaste before I became a Young Living gal. And now I love the Young Living toothpaste, but I used to make my own toothpaste because I just did not like any of the options that I was seeing in the store. I didn't want to use fluoride, which I know is a big debate. Fluoride is fine for some people. For me personally, I didn't want to use it. And so I made my own. And that was like, a really empowering moment for me of like, wow, this is kind of fun. And it actually tastes really good. I couldn't tell you what was in it now. Besides, I did start adding orange essential oil to it. And that made it taste really good. And it had xylitol and baking soda and a couple other things, but I can't remember it now.
That is so neat. I love that. I love that that's your first one. What would you recommend? So for people listening who maybe like, they're just learning about this information, what would you recommend others ditch and switch first? Like what's an easy product to ditch and switch?
Yeah, I always say that the laundry room is a really good place to start, because it's also almost always the most toxic one. There are
Mm,
over 10 documented carcinogens in most name brand mainstream dryer sheets, at least. So maybe dryer sheets should be kind of the first thing to go, which some people
yeah.
hear that and they're like clinging on to their dryer sheets. They're going, no, don't make me do it.
Yeah.
And but there are ways that you can get really nice smelling laundry with alternatives. If you are into essential oils, then get yourself some wool dryer balls, and then you can have so much fun with all sorts of combinations of different scents that you just drop onto the wool dryer balls and throw it into your dryer. I love orange oil for that. I like the citrus oils for that kind of thing because I feel like you can use a bunch and it's not as
Yeah.
expensive. Those citrus oils are a little more on the lower budget side. And then I have also used the Young Living Seedlings wipes as dryer sheets. Have you ever done that?
Yes. Those are so
Yeah,
good.
that works really well. So if you're the kind of person that just wants to pull something out and throw it in, then the baby wipes that Young Living makes are great for that. And then, as I mentioned to the My Green Fills laundry company, they have these dryer angels that I really like too. They just give off this really beautiful smell, and you just throw them in there. I love things that you can just throw in and press a
Yes.
button and you're good to go.
Yes. Yes, I am easy button for life.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. Oh, another suggestion. I haven't actually tried this before because I don't know. I don't get bothered by, I don't live in a place where I get a lot of static issues, but if
mhm.
you have like a static issue and you don't want to let go of your fabric softener or your dryer sheets, then one thing that can help is to get a bowl of water
Mhm.
and put a couple drops of essential oils into it and then soak that up with a sponge and then squeeze that out a little bit and then throw that damp sponge into your dryer, and that can help
Ooh.
with the kind of static issue sometimes. I've also heard throwing a ball of tin foil in your dryer helps with that too, but I've not tested that one out
Ooh.
myself.
So
So
many tricks, so many ways
yeah.
around it. But dryer sheets are a very good one to ditch first. Okay, so a common question that I get, or like even hesitation from friends that I'm talking to about this, is like, okay, but my kids are really messy. Like, I need a harsh cleaner. Like, essential oils can't possibly be strong enough to kill germs and bacteria. So, what's your response when people say that? I'm sure you've heard like similar objections.
Yeah. Well, I say, well, I use a household cleaner that my kids can use. So when they get messy, they're the ones that have to deal with cleaning that up.
Yes.
But it's great to see, when they're holding a spray bottle, and we just use the Thieves household cleaner. I mean, it's so easy to use. And I love that they can be like up against the window, huffing it and spraying it. And I'm not worried about it. It's not,
Yeah.
not bad for them. And it's surprisingly powerful, the Thieves household cleaner. And I'm not a scientist. I cannot tell you why it is as effective as the harsh cleaners and whatnot. I know that it's based in, natural plant based ingredients, but there's something really powerful about that combination of whatever, what's the word for it? Sulfurcant, I think is the term for like the chemical that kind of has the grit factor to it that really
Mm.
like, takes up the nasty stuff, but then combine it with the essential oils. It's so powerful. And when you look at the research behind essential oils, there's thousands and thousands of articles that detail out how powerful these oils are on bacteria, on virus, on mold, all these things. But you don't think of them that way because we have all grown up with those commercials where everything is the shiny bald man and everything's sparkly clear and sterile. For some
Yeah.
reason, we've become a country that associates cleanliness with sterility. And really, it's not good for us. I prefer a clean house, and that's great if you want a clean house, but don't think that to have a clean house, you have to wipe out every single iota of bacteria on your counter, when in fact, there's lots of research pointing to that actually being detrimental to our health because we're wiping out the good gut bacteria that's in our systems when we are inhaling these chemicals that wipe out everything. We're not meant to live in a glass bubble, really. And we know that kids that grow up on farms and with pets and things like that have much, much stronger immune systems than kids that are raised in these sterile environments. So I think there needs to be a bit of a mind shift there. But if you do want that power, then there are natural cleaning products out there that work really well. And if you're into the DIY scene too, like there's nothing I haven't been able to clean as good as a harsh cleaner with just enough baking soda and vinegar.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. Seriously. I was just going to say, how many people just like clean with just vinegar and like, if you look at a lot of natural cleaners have essential oils in them. And like, when you go back, if you see that, for example, Thieves Cleaner has cinnamon in it, you can go and see, oh, cinnamon is like antibacterial and antifungal and like is so powerful that it's like, this makes sense. But that, like, I've never heard anyone explain that just, we think things being sterile is clean. I've never thought about that. That gave me like chills. So thank you for saying that, because even I just learned something.
Embrace the dirt. That's all I'm saying.
Yes. Yes. Okay. So if people don't want to be using products that have fragrance or other harmful chemicals, but they also maybe aren't in a place financially to buy some of the more natural products, they can DIY them, like you just mentioned. So do you have any like favorite, maybe just share like 2 favorite recipes of anything personal care, cleaner, any kind of like DIY that people could make at home? You shared the dryer ball one, which is a great one because that saves money. That's the other thing. It's like sometimes these things actually save us money.
Yeah, absolutely. So lately I've been using a face serum that I've concocted where I'll put it on like at night and I'll just let it seep in. And it's a mixture of mostly avocado oil because I tend to have drier skin, and avocado oil is really hydrating. If you have really oily skin, you might want to use something else. I forget what the carrier oil for oily skin is best as. I want to say maybe like rose hip seed oil instead would be a good alternative, but really whatever base of avocado oil or a mixture of avocado, rose hip, jojoba, things like that. And then I like to add in geranium essential oil to that and frankincense essential oil to that. And for your face, you really don't need a ton of essential oil. I forget the exact dilution ratio, so forgive me, but I think you really only need like 1% to 2% dilution for your face. So you don't need a lot. And I'll just rub that into my face. And then sometimes I'll take a nice warm towel and put that over my face as well, just to kind of open up the pores and get it in there, which is really lovely.
Yeah.
And then let's see, other than that, I'd say lemon oil. It's not really a recipe so much, but just anything around your house that is got that sticky residue on it and you just can't seem to get it off, just slap some lemon oil on it, scrub it with a cotton ball, and boom, it comes right out. And this also works I'm notorious for writing things on dry erase boards and then not erasing them for like a year, and like, I'll go back and be like, oh yeah, I should probably erase that. And after like a year, it does not want to come off. And I tried everything. I tried Thieves Cleaner. I tried water, vinegar, everything to like get it off. And I was like, oh, I wonder if lemon oil would work. And sure enough, it came right off with the lemon oil. So I just love lemon oil as just a catch-all for all things cleaning, all things icky, goopy, sticky, clingy, that kind of stuff.
It's like an infomercial, isn't it? Every time I like, I'll try lemon oil, but this is bad. And then it works. And it's like, I'm watching my own infomercial. Like if I wasn't there, I would not believe it. It's so funny. Lemon is crazy. And my boyfriend, Dave, he's like a big entrepreneur. Like everything is like, let's make a business. We could totally make a business for this. And when he had like sap all over his hands from cutting down a tree, and I'm like, just trust me, use lemon. And he's kind of like, oh, whatever. And then it came right off. And of course he's just like, can we sell this? This is amazing.
Like, I think there's some people.
I think people, like me. But yeah, lemon is a really good one and so
That's
affordable.
so
Like
funny.
I don't have the prices in front of me, but I'm sure
Yeah.
lemon compared to like a product similar to Goo Gone or whatever, probably I would be willing to guess that a lemon essential oil would be cheaper with how many drops are in the
I
bottle.
would think so. Yeah. With how little you need and how far it goes. Yeah. I would think so.
Yeah. So, so empowering. So, like we mentioned, all of this can be like really overwhelming and it can be expensive to just like throw everything away. So, I also want to say, like, neither Sam or I are saying, like, stop listening to this and get a garbage bag and like throw it all away. Like, do one thing at a time. Like, say, when I run out of my shampoo, I'm going to switch that out. And when I run out of this, but do you have any like closing encouragement for people or advice or any last like information that you would want to share before we dive into rapid fire?
I would think that the best advice I have for people is just to really approach it as a mindset issue and have fun with it. Empower yourself, step into that role of gatekeeper of your home with pride, as opposed to with this like, oh Lord, now I have like one more thing I got to worry about. But really just step into the fact that you are the gatekeeper for your home. You're the one that gets to decide what you're going to allow in it, what you're going to buy. And that's so empowering. And the power of voting with your dollars is making real change. People said that was a slogan from 20 years ago. I remember that being a thing, vote with your dollars. And when I heard it back then, I just thought, well, that's a cool idea, but I don't think it's going to work. It has worked. Look at
Yeah.
20 years later, we have so many companies popping up that are driven by these same kind of values, that are listening to consumers and going, all right, we hear you don't want all this crap in your products. Like, we're going to give it to you, so it's working. And to know that is really powerful. And, just don't try to be perfect. Like you said, like, don't throw everything into a garbage can and get rid of it. Take it one thing at a time. I don't like people to have what I call full on granola meltdown.
Yeah.
We don't want to do that. And if you start living in fear, that's easily what can happen. So you've got to change that fear into that mindset of, I have choices, I can have fun with this, and I have power.
Yes, so good. And just like how you were so proud and empowered by your toothpaste. That's such a good example. Like you didn't have to like destroy your whole house and get all new products to feel like excited and empowered. You made your own toothpaste and that was like so exciting. And I think that's such a good reminder of like even one thing. It's not just one thing, it's all of those ingredients that you just like left behind. It's so,
Mm-hmm.
so powerful. Okay. Are you ready for rapid fire?
I guess so. I was not prepared for this, so I'm nervous.
No, it's all fun. This is usually like my favorite part. Number one, what's something people get wrong about you?
So I think because people know that I have a podcast, I host the Essential Oil Revolution podcast, and I love getting stories out of people, and I love asking questions, and I love talking to people. So people assume that I am a good storyteller, which I am not at all. Like, I cannot tell you a good joke to save my life. I have no delivery. And when I tell stories, I'm all over the place. But if you sit me down, at a party and you have the unfortunate chance to sit next to me and I have a little wine in me, then I'm going to be asking you all the questions. I'll be like, tell me about your childhood. Tell me about this. Tell me about, because I love hearing stories and I love learning about other people. But I think because of that, people are like, Sam, tell us a story. And I'm like, I don't know how to do that.
I love that. I love your self-awareness to know that too. That's awesome. Okay. A podcast other than your own and Whimsy Wellness, of course, that you're a loyal listener of.
Ooh, Criminal.
Ooh, I've seen that one, but I've never heard it.
It's the best true crime podcast out there. And I'm just saying that with full force. It is the best. And, I can get into true crime and the gory and all that kind of stuff. I can get kind of OD'd on it and I have to take a break, but I never get tired of Criminal because they have a much more I don't want to use the word sophisticated. That sounds really like snobbish, but they just have a really beautiful way of exploring true crime and these stories and crafting these tales together. That's just, I think, is amazing. The host, Phoebe Judge has the best radio voice of all time. And I'm a huge fan.
Love that. I'm going to look it up. Since we're Whimsy Wellness, what's your favorite essential oil roller or diffuser blend right now?
Stress Away, forever and always.
Stress
Just love Stress Away. And there's something about, I think it has that little hint of vanilla in it that just brings me back to my boyfriend in high school. That I'm just like, love Stress Away. So I take baths in it. I, constantly have it in my purse. So I just roll it on all the time.
Yes. Okay. And then where can people find you and listen to you?
Yeah. So my podcast, The Essential Oil Revolution, is anywhere that you listen to podcasts. And usually if you just search the term essential oils in any podcast app, it's typically the first one that comes up. Or you can, I love that people can tell Alexa to play the Essential Oil Revolution podcast and she'll do it. And I'm like,
that is so cool.
So that's always fun. And then my website in general is samanthaleewright.com. And that connects you out to all my things that I do. I teach other people how to make podcasts, and I teach a toxic-free makeover course as well. And you should be able to find all that at samanthaleewright.com. And I'm on Instagram at Sam Lee Wright, and that's Lee, Sam Lee Wright.
Yay. And I will put the link for that download that you mentioned in the show notes, along with Sam's podcast and her website and all of that, so that you guys can easily access everything. But this has been really encouraging. And even, like I said, I even learned something. So thank you so, so much for coming on today.
My pleasure, Meg. Thank you so much for having me.